Hey everybody, welcome back to Terrific Con, and I'm Drew with SplashPages, and I'm so excited to have somebody here who, honestly, we were glad to have on the show. It's always glad to see him again. The one, the only, the super, Mark Waid.
Good morning.
Good morning, good evening, good night. You're doing good.
Okay.
It is okay, buddy. So, first thing, it's great to see you again. Thank you again for coming on the show earlier this year. We really appreciated it. I feel bad our co-host Leah Pond here, because that's the first time I think he's squeed when we had a guest on. So the first question I have to ask is about the beginning. So if I recall correctly, it was 1984.
Yep.
You go to a seminar that Sal Amendola
taught.
Yeah, and you got in because you asked a question that he hadn't been asked before. And if I correct, it was, what stories aren't you writing, right?
Right. What stories are people not bringing you? What scripts are new guys not bringing you?
Right.
And the answer was, nobody's doing Superman scripts. Everybody wants to write Batman.
Right.
So as it happens, that's my guy. And so I worked up a couple of pitches, and then I went into Julie Schwartz's office. I went and made it to New York, went to Julie Schwartz's office, sold him one on the spot.
Right.
And happiest day of my professional life.
Yeah, because that was, I seem to recall it was Superman goes back to the Fortress of Solitude, and he finds it's been ransacked. It's like, what?
Exactly.
Like, what the, and I believe what you said in the interview was, it's not Watchmen, it's not Prowse, but you know what? That was my first, and I'm still proud of it.
Thank you. Exactly. I feel very much, as a matter of fact, I'm so proud of it that I'm writing Action Comics 1072.
Yes, you are.
500 issues exactly.
So many.
There. And so I'm doing the same story. So
there you go.
Not the same setup.
The
same setup. The Fortress of Solitude has been burgled.
Nice.
Because I wanted to do that because I figured 500 issues. I figured that if I get hit by a bus, my career has the perfect arc. I start and begin at the same place.
Well, just listen. Just maybe call an Uber or something, Mark. I don't want you to get hit by a bus. All right. So then, second one is also about the past. So, if my research code, you originally when we read, you wanted to be an editor, and you were working with the late great Dick Giordano.
Yep.
And he gave you some unorthodox advice because you brought up Neil Adams. Right. And you were just like, okay, this is great. This is the worst thing
the worst advice you can give to a new editor. It was. I asked him. I said, "You work with Neil, who is notorious about deadlines." I said, "You work with Neil on advertising budget, advertising things, big advertising agencies. This is real money on the table. This is not comics."
Right.
So clearly, Neil always was late with those guys too. How did they handle it? They would, that's a lot of money on the table.
Right.
And Dick just laughed and he said, "Look, Neil was always late." And the clients would always lose their minds.
Right.
But 6 months later, they wouldn't remember how late it was. They would just remember how good it was.
Right.
And I love that lesson.
Right.
And he's absolutely right. If its script takes an extra day to be much better, or a piece of art takes an extra day, take the day because it's going to be good. It's going to be better. But it was the worst advice you give to an assistant editor.
Well, yeah, because you don't want to be like Douglas Adams, where they have to lock him in a hotel. Finish the book.
Yeah, exactly.
You just finish. I will pay for the room. Finish the book.
As an editor, I'm responsible for the freelancer deadline. So yes.
Right. So I mean, there's so much we can. I could ask you career-wise, but and I could bring up the Flash that you and then the late great Brian Augustin did, but I kind of want to bring up Impulse, who is one of my subtle favorites. You did that, and you worked with the great Humberto Ramos. It's one of his earliest work.
Yep.
And what was that like? You're expanding the Flash universe.
Yep.
You have this kid who is raised in virtual reality. He's raised in the future. He's coming to the past. He has to slow down.
Right.
And what was that like working with this character? And then how do you feel about how he's been portrayed? We've seen him in Young Justice. We saw him in The Flash. So what was that like? Are you like the proud? That's
absolutely.
My kid over there.
Look, there's nothing that comic book people enjoy more than seeing something that they created live past them, go on, have its own life.
Right.
Because it feels then like you contributed something to the grand legacy.
Right.
So with Impulse, I very much have a sense of pride and joy.
Right.
It was great working with Umberto because he was learning.
Right.
But he drew great comedy right off the bat, and it was a comedy book. It wasn't a superhero book. It was a comedy book with some superhero elements, which nobody else was doing at the time.
Of course.
And I think that helped it stand out, even though the marketing department said, "Why are we publishing this?"
Right.
It doesn't make any. This is not superhero stuff, and they wanted to cancel it after issue 6, but the problem is the sales kept rising.
Oh.
So we were good for another 94 issues or something like that. Yeah.
No, it was absolutely great. And then you brought up another point. You brought up something that you feel that you as a writer are someone who writes against the grain.
Yeah.
And that your stuff, some of your things, they don't sell well.
Right.
And it's kind of like, but then years later, they're still in print. They're still being cosplayed. And then the things that were popular.
Yeah. That's just it. I mean, I take pride in the fact that I tend to write for a long tail.
Yeah.
I tend to write for stuff that sells okay.
Right.
In the short term, but it's never like a #1 book.
Right.
But it's stuff that stays in print forever. Superman Birthright, I'm very proud of. Was it the top-selling book that month? No. But it stayed in print for all this time.
Right. No.
And most, if not all of my DC work, with a few small exceptions, is still in print, and I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, no, totally. So then the last question I have is, of course, we're at the 60th anniversary of Daredevil.
Yep.
I have to admit, I've read a lot of Daredevil, but yours that you did with your slew of creators, including Chris Samney, who I'm trying to imitate, and I think I need to lose a little bit more weight, but I'll get there.
If you had the cane,
I know
that would be the tip off.
I know, but I'm just now I just look like I'm trying to do like a snazzy Mephisto.
Right.
So you did that, and you said it yourself that, well, one, you have a policy. I do no harm to the characters.
Right. That's
right.
Yeah.
That's very big. So your thing is that you put Matt through a lot of shit. You went through some awful, dark moments, but you focused on how he gets out of that.
That's just it.
That's the positive. And somehow people are like, oh, he's so cheerful, and you're like, whoa.
Yeah. I think people look at the artwork that is not Jim Lee.
Right.
It is not a million hatch lines, and it's not to take away from Jim, but I'm saying people who imitate Jim,
right?
They tend to make it all about super detail and hyper detailed and grim and dark and Paulo Rivera and Marcos Martin and Chris Samney don't come from that school.
Right.
So at first glance, the work looks a little light.
Right.
But if you actually read the stories, you will find that there's it's quite the switch. I mean, I like the idea that horrible things happen to Matt during this time.
Yeah.
Horrible things. And it really is just a matter of not what hell can we put him through, but how does he get out of this? How does he keep an even keel with all of this stuff going on?
And it's just briefly, I think it's like when I saw the Spot in the Spider-Verse, and people were like, oh my God, he's such a villain. I was like, you need to wait. Like, I'm still terrified of what you made. I was like, Portal's scary. So the last thing I just want to say briefly, because I want to bring it up, but I'm going to say, congratulations on the Kingdom Come documentary.
Thank you.
That's coming out. I know that, again, I know they announced it at San Diego Comic-Con. Congrats to you and Alex Ross.
Thank you.
That's the story. I seem to recall when I first met you, you said, every year I think I've signed the last one, and DC
apparently
just
not,
keeps
but
putting
that's okay.
it out.
All good by me, but
so just congratulations to that.
Thank you.
And congratulations on your not just the Superman stuff, but you have Batman and Robin Year 1 coming out. You're reuniting with Chris Samney.
Right.
So you're busy.
Justice League Unlimited coming up.
Justice League, So,
and there's at least 2 other things we haven't announced yet.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you for taking the time.
My pleasure.
I appreciate it. So thank you. So everybody, please, Mark Waid is going to be busy. Give him more money so he can write more comics that we will all enjoy. Yep. And side note, just as I learned this, if you see him at a con and he looks a little dehydrated, get him a Diet Coke.
Please.
Because, comic creators need to stay hydrated too. They're people. So thank you, everybody. Stay tuned. We got a lot more for Terrific Con, and stay super.